Welcome to the Killer Innovation Show, the longest continuously produced podcast in history. Each week, Phil McKinney brings you the insights and strategies to amplify your creativity and innovation skills. Here's your host, Phil McKinney.
Hello and welcome. I'm Phil McKinney. This week, we are reaching deep into the archive and bringing you one of our most downloaded shows. Enjoy. Welcome to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are on the road. We just wrapped up, in fact, teaching the 5-day Innovation Bootcamp course here in Silicon Valley. It is open to the public, by the way, so if you are interested in potentially participating in the bootcamp, then just let me know. We can get you an invite to that. I think the next one is the week of September 25th, and that will actually be held in northern Colorado, in Louisville, which is right next to Boulder, Colorado, so if you know where Boulder's at. So that one is coming up, but we just wrapped up the course, had full-out students. It was really great. We just wrapped it up yesterday. I'm taking an extra day here in Silicon Valley before I head to London next week. But I wanted to get out a quick show to you and keep the flow going. So today's topic is actually one that has kind of been on the back of my mind for quite some time, and it's about being content. Now, I can look back on my career, and I can tell you times when I was content, happy with the job, happy with my family, secured financial position, happy with my kids. Yes, even when they were teenagers. Now, if I look back on my career, it's happened maybe 3 or 4 times across my life. And I mean, not just that's the only time I was content. That was when it really stood out that I was content. Now, when I look back upon it, though, and I look about the time that I was content and then what happened immediately after, I could see that contentment gave me a false sense of, happiness, a false sense of satisfaction. It usually came after a particularly chaotic, stressful event in my life. Like when my mother passed away. She'd been living with us for a number of years. This is when we were living in Washington, D.C., and she'd had severe health issues to the point where we had to move her and my dad to Virginia. My wife was a nurse at the time. My wife gave up her professional nursing career in order to take care of my parents until my mom passed away. Now, the one thing that was about my mom that I find really interesting was her perseverance. She suffered severe medical issues, and it lasted for 5 years. And during that time, my wife and I became what I refer to sometimes as sandwichers. We had our 3 kids, were all teenagers at the time. They were still living at home. Plus, then my parents were living in the house in a separate area that we built specifically for them, so they had their own little kitchen and their own bathroom and their own living room, etc. But we were the sandwichers, so it was particularly stressful of taking care of both the medical and financial needs of my parents, raising 3 kids at the time, and me trying to grow a career, and my wife literally giving up her career in order to take care of my parents. In the contentment I felt afterwards, after that stress was away, I asked myself, was it real? When I look back, it was really almost a precursor of being surprised, caught off guard. Because I fell into this lull of contentment, I was trying to coast. I basically checked out, given all the stress that I and my family had been under. And what happened was I wasn't looking for the weak signals that change was coming. I'd kind of gotten over the stress, kind of leaning back, saying to myself, okay, we're happy, family, we're financially secure. Yes, my mom had recently passed away, but it was really this sense of what at the time I thought was really commitment. But at that point, with saying I'm happy with where I'm at, I wasn't looking. I wasn't out checking to make sure that I was keeping on top of the weak signals that some kind of big change was about to happen. Now, to take advantage or to cause these weak signals, you have to kind of be leaning forward. you need to make sure that you don't fall into this trap of being content. Content basically tells you that everything is fine, you can coast, and that change is not going to happen. And look, the world is under constant change. We cannot be happy and content with staying where we are. Right? We think we kind of achieved it, now we're going to tread water until we die. That is not what happens. The world is under constant change. For innovation, being content is not just bad. It is very bad. Contentment gives that false sense of that we're done. It's almost like, I'm trying to remember the year, but it was a while, back 100 years ago, 150 years ago, with the head of the U.S. Patent Office is, famously said to have quoted, everything that could possibly invented has been invented. And so therefore we could be content and just kind of coast. And that's not the case. If you look at the amount of change, the amount of technology, the amount the world is changing, society is changing, everything around us is changing. So being content is bad for innovation, and not just bad, it is unbelievably bad for driving innovation. Because contentment, again, gives you that false sense that we're done. And we are never done. There's always more work to be done in order to continue to address those problems and opportunities. Now, what happens when we fall into, this contentment? And that is we almost talk ourselves into it. This contentment is giving us this sense that, hey, everything is great. Everything can be, has all been put together. We're kind of in the right place. Our kids are great. Our families are great. Our financial position is great. We would be happy if everything right now could just stay the same. And when you fall into that trap of contentment, then we literally talk ourselves into not rocking the boat. Everything is great. Be happy. Just coast. Everything is perfect. Well, if you're careful about not doing anything to upset or make changes, then you can maintain this sense of contentment. And in my book, that kind of language, like don't rock the boat, everything is great, be happy, it sure sounds like an innovation antibody to me. And it actually falls into a type of antibody that I talk about in my book, Beyond the Obvious, around having that sense of a feeling of this contentment, of this satisfaction, of this no change type of antibody. As we talked about in the book, there are 4 types of antibodies. You yourself can be your own form of, quote, no change kind of antibody. These are the antibodies in an organization where companies like having really great quarterly results, having really great employee satisfaction, customers are happy, everything's rocking and rolling. So these are the antibodies that will push back on any innovation, any idea by saying, whoa, everything's great. Why are you rocking the boat? Come on, let's just keep doing what we're doing. We're king of the hill. Let's not screw it up by doing something that actually pushes us in the wrong direction. And we can talk ourselves into doing that exact same thing in our own personal life through this feeling of contentment. Now, contentment and happiness and satisfaction are all great feelings. But when we extend that contentment into this feeling of, I want to protect this feeling, and I want to do everything in my power to maintain this feeling, then we put blinders on. We overlook the weak signals that change is about to come in and totally disrupt. And when I went back and I was looking at those the times when I was contentment, those 3 or 4 times in my entire career, and I look at what happened, I fell into this feeling of contentment. I missed the weak signal, and it totally took away any contentment I had, because the whole world changed, whether it was, stock market crashes or total big shifts in the industries I was involved in, whatever it was. But that it always seemed to immediately follow after I fell into this trap of contentment because I stopped looking. I did the lean back. World is great. Let's not upset the apple cart. Let's not push any change. Everything is hunky dory. Don't make any changes. And as soon as you do that, my experience has been, and I look back on history here, that's when I got smacked. That's when I stumbled. That's when I fell. And it was probably some of the lowest points in my career and in my life was when right after I fell into that trap of contentment, where I was trying to ignore anything from the outside that would upset this feeling of contentment that I had. Now, the premise for this topic today is my belief that being content is the enemy of innovation. It actually becomes that roadblock. But before we talk about the innovation impact and why I've so firm believer in this, let's talk more about this feeling of contentment. So what do I mean by being content? Contentment exhibits itself with the feelings of peace, calmness, that sense of acceptance that where we are is enough, happiness, satisfaction with our day-to-day life. Now, that all sounds like you finally arrived. Sounds comfortable. It actually sounds great. It's really enticing. However, many, if not most people, move into this position of contentment as their way of giving up. Now, I know that's some strong words. Hear me out. We all think we want contentment, and it makes us feel like the list above, right? So we take steps to avoid anything that will take that feeling away. So if we've fallen into this trap of contentment, this peace, this calmness, this sense of acceptance, happiness, we will do almost anything to protect that sense of contentment. So for instance, if you get that sense of peace, what do? We avoid conflicts at all costs. We want to remain peaceful. We don't want anything to change that. So we will avoid all conflicts. We'll roll over. We don't challenge, ourselves, or we don't challenge others. Same thing with calmness. Calmness is all about avoiding stress. So we say no to anything that will cause yourself or others stress. We avoid doing anything new, as that could be stressful. If you try to go off and do something new, like learn a new sport or, learn a new language, it's stressful. Nope, don't do that. That will impact your calmness. And then what about acceptance? We do everything in our possession to have everyone love us. So we all of a sudden become yes people, and we will acquiesce and support just to make sure that everybody loved us. So these are just some of the examples. So when we get into this role of contentment, the whole objective shifts to being, we don't want that feeling to go away. So we will give up things like for peace. We will avoid conflict at all costs. If we're in calmness, we're going to avoid stress. Don't do anything new. That might be stressful. If it's acceptance, it's about we want people to love us. Now, when you really think about it to that level, does contentment sound as good as maybe we thought it was? It doesn't sound like a life to me. Then don't forget about the influences from others, right? They're telling us to be content. Now, early in my career, I did 13 startups before I got my first IPO. Yes, I did 13 startups before I got my first IPO, right? And so you're pushing, you're working all kinds of crazy hours. Some of those were simultaneous. I'm doing 2 startups at the same time with 2 different groups. And as we're pushing ourselves, we're working all kinds of crazy hours. And I was doing this in the early 80s. My first round in Silicon Valley is when I did most of my startup work. And I'd have my parents and my in-laws and other people saying, whoa, man, you're really pushing yourself. You just need to be content with where you are and what you have. Don't, why are you killing yourself working 75, 80-hour weeks? Be content with where you are and what you have. It's a bad thing to keep changing and adapting. It's a bad thing that you keep wanting to achieve something where you've got this passion and this energy to go create products or launch new services or have impact on your clients' lives. These are people who may be around you are just saying, hold on here a second. Don't be content. Be content with where you are and what you have. Why are you so, hungry for things? That's a bad thing. Be content. Contentment can give you that false sense that change also is slowing down. All right? You get into this role of contentment, you almost put blinders on, like change is, you're not seeing the change. When in fact, change is accelerating, which requires then that we all have to pick up the pace. Now, in some cases, contentment is also our way of checking out, when we can't take it anymore. Like following the extended years of the stress of taking care of my aging parents, I think my falling into this kind of what I would call false sense of contentment was basically me giving myself permission to take a couple of years and literally just check out. Don't rock the boat. Just go do the 9 to 5. Be home. Don't travel. Don't come up with any new. Don't be doing the startup side hustle while you're doing your normal job. It was my way of checking out. So, what do you feel about contentment now? Has any of this description that I've given you caused you to kind of look at contentment differently? Is it something to strive for? Now, I'm not saying all contentment is bad. What I am saying is be on guard. Don't let yourself fall into the contentment trap. Don't let those feelings cause you to lean back and give up and put those blinders on where you're literally missing any of the signals coming your direction that something is happening, change is happening. The economy is changing, your industry is changing, business is changing, whatever's changing. You fall into that trap of contentment where you lean back and give up. You're going to miss that weak signal. Now, if you let contentment cause you to be caught off guard, your contentment will be blown apart. In the example of my parents, when I kind of fell into that role of contentment after they passed away, and I kind of went into this coast mode for a couple of years. By the time I kind of woke up, I didn't wake up on my own. I woke up because things just changed. Changed in our family life, kids going away to college. Things changed, in my work world, with entire industries being wiped out because of economic changes or regulatory changes. Career and skill sets, when you're coasting, you're not learning new things. And then you fall into this trap of all of a sudden you wake up 2 to 3 years from now, and the skills and knowledge you have, nobody else wants. Right? So don't let those feelings cause you to lean back and give up and miss these weak signals. You cannot let contentment cause you to be caught off guard. I got caught off guard, so I'm trying to share with you my own personal experience that was extremely painful and hard lessons to learn. And the last time I felt commitment and when I got disrupted, that's when I started this podcast. That's when I started reaching out and trying to find ways to have impact on people's lives back in 2005. So don't fall into the trap I did. Learn from what I went through, and you can have that. You can just have those eyes open. Now, I'm a believer that being content is the enemy of innovation. So why do I say that? Why do I have this view of being content as the enemy of innovation? My definition of innovation is making ideas real. And where do ideas come from? Most ideas come from innovators who see the problems, see the annoyances, see the opportunities to do things differently. And I would argue that true innovators are not content. They're never content. They're almost hypersensitive to the things that they see with unique, fresh eyes that are problems or opportunities to improve or opportunities to eliminate those things out of our lives. They are not content. They know that we can do better. They're not willing to sit back and coast. They are driven through their passion, their energy, and again, these innovators with fresh eyes to go and change the world. If everyone was content with the horse and buggy, would the automobile have ever been invented? If we were content with the automobile, would we have ever invented the airplane? Thank goodness for those, what I would call unsettled souls, who were not content and went on to invent the next great thing. This is critically important. I want to make sure you understand. I'm not saying that all contentment is bad, but contentment that causes us to kind of lean back and look for a way to coast, that is the problem. That's where we put the blinders on and we miss these opportunities. And like I said, true innovators are not content. In fact, I'll even go even further to say true innovators are never content. They're always annoyed by something. They always see the possibilities of change. They always see the way to make things better. They always are looking for ways to eliminate things that are just get in the way of what we do each and every day. So what do you do when you start getting that, quote, I've arrived content feeling, right? So let's say, you feel like you're in that content mode. Things in the family are great. Things at work are great. Your financial security, your retirement's locked up. The kids' college funds are fully funded. The kids are doing fantastic. And now you're almost falling into defense mode to protect that. Then what do you do? What is it that you can change? In order to make sure that you don't fall into putting the blinders on and missing something? You need to challenge yourself to do something uncomfortable, to go out and do something that you've never done before. Do something for the first time. Whether that's learning to dance, or whether that is, going to a country and learning the foreign language before you go there to be proficient, to learning something completely outside your skill set. If you're in sales and marketing, learning to program. If you're a programmer writing software, build hardware from the ground up. Do something that challenges yourself, that will actually give you a little bit of stress, because it's that stress that actually can be energizing, but also causes you to open your eyes wide and be seeking and looking for those changes that are coming. For instance, during your daily creative muscle exercises. Now, if you are not familiar with it, I've talked about this many times in the show. There's a daily exercise that I do where I actually do 30 minutes of ideation every morning for 5 days a week. I take 1 day off, and then I rank them. And I do this every week, and then every quarter I take the best of the best and rank those, because I believe that you got to exercise your creative muscle. Just like you're not going to get up off the couch after being a couch potato and go run the Boston Marathon. You're not going to get up out of your chair and be able to generate game-changing breakthrough ideas if you have not exercised your creative muscle. So, if you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, I'll put the link in the show notes in order to give you the link over to the other shows where I talk about the exercise regimen that I use, and you should consider doing it yourself to exercise your creative muscle, just like you would exercise your legs and your arms, and exercise in order for just good health, or if you want to go run a marathon, exercise is good. Creative exercise, even more critical. So I would argue that during your creative muscle exercise, challenge yourself to come up with 5 problems that need to be solved. 5, they can be personal items, like things around the house that's a problem that you want to go fix. It could be in your community. I actually did a whole series of ideation exercises around trash pickup and recycling in Silicon Valley. It was just one thing that I just kind of got hooked on and was brainstorming a whole bunch of ideas. It could be 5 problems at your job, and ideate and create ideas to solve that problem. Could be for the nonprofit you're passionate about. My wife and I and my kids, we run 2 nonprofits, hackingautism.org and Pioneer Education Africa. And right now, one of the things I'm doing in my morning creative muscle exercises is solving a problem with water at our school and our fish farms in Rwanda, Africa. But that's how I keep myself going, is there's always problems to be solved. And if you are an innovator, don't sit back and think you're an innovator just because you've studied or you listened to this podcast or you read a book or whatever. Go out and innovate, keep innovating, find those problems that you could innovate a solution to, right? So again, for your daily creative muscle exercise, challenge yourself. Brainstorm problems to solve. Don't brainstorm ideas to a solution to a problem. Put a twist on it. So for the next 5 days, just challenge yourself to come up with 5 problems that need to be solved. Again, they can be personal, they can be in your community, they can be on your job, they could be a nonprofit, you're passionate about. It could be, solving how to raise more money for the PTA, for your local school, so the band can get new instruments. Whatever it is, continue to innovate. You need to drive that perspective of contentment where you think you've arrived and everything is good and you can coast is not good. Right? Contentment of just being happy with what you get is different. Contentment with what you have and therefore trying to coast and hold your current position, you will not hold that position because things are changing and they're changing at a faster pace. There are literally hundreds, more like thousands of problems or opportunities we come across every day that we could innovate a solution for if we would just open our eyes. If we had fresh eyes, if we looked at problems that we tend to walk past. If you drive the exact same way it would work every day, you walk the sidewalks the exact same way to drop or pick up your kids at school. We always go to the same 3 restaurants. We always go travel vacations to the same places multiple times. We fall into the rut and we lose our fresh eyes. So getting out there and looking at those hundreds or thousands of problems or opportunities we come across every day and regain our fresh eyes. Go a different way, travel a different way, do something that causes you to look at those opportunities differently. Don't sit back and be content. Lean forward and innovate. Why? The world would be a better place because of what you do. Thanks for the time out of your busy schedule today to join us here on the show. Hope you found today's episode helpful. You can post it in the comments wherever you get your podcast. Or if you want, you can hop on over to the Innovators community. That is theinnovators.community. You can hop on over there and post it over there. We have shows. Each show we also post over there. The community, it's free of charge, no charge to become a member of it, and that's where innovators hang out. That's where innovators hang out and talk about their ideas, their stories, get feedback, ask for help, help others. So go over, check that out. Also, I would ask a favor. The role or the purpose for doing the show, we started the show back in 2005. Yes, we started podcasting before iTunes was around to even support podcasting. So the reason we started this was to pay it forward, and I need your help to pay it forward. And what I need is for you to tell others, for you to pay it forward, the benefit, the information, hopefully the encouragement in your own areas of innovation from the show, for you to share that, pay it forward by sharing information about the show, encouraging others to listen to the show. That is how you help me pay it forward. So please tell others. Also, we're looking for topics for upcoming shows. We're always looking for topics, interesting guests, etc. You can drop me an email over at phil@killerinnovations.com. And I get that email, comes directly to me, bypasses anybody in the middle, filtering it all out. So you can just drop me an email if there's a topic, a question, or a guest who you think you would like to have on the show. And so with that, hopefully, again, you found today's shows helpful. We've got a number of great shows coming up, so subscribe, like, and follow. follow over also on social media if you want to keep up with where we are traveling. We are on the bus with the mobile studio, so we are out visiting, traveling, meeting up with other innovators. So love to meet up with you if you happen to be, if you see us on the road. But if you want to follow where we're at or where we're heading, you want to hop on over to Instagram. For that, you can actually see pictures of the bus and therefore be able to recognize if you happen to see us on the road. But also, if you know people, we're in the Southeast right now. So if you know of innovators, people that have got interesting stories, would love to hear about that. So follow us on social media. Again, LinkedIn, Instagram, and the innovators community being the three that I am most active on. So with that, thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode, and we'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.
Podcasting nonstop since 2005, this has been the Killer Innovation Show on the Innovators Network.